What is holding you back from reaching your full potential? So I want you to picture the scene. It was a beautiful day in 1977. Laura Schultz was in Tallahassee, in Florida. At the time, Laura was 68 years old. She was sitting in the kitchen of her home in Tallahassee, in Florida, and she heard the gargling scream of her grandson. She realized that is his voice, that is his screech, and he was clearly beseeching with a sound that hits the kishkas. She looked outside the window, and Laura Schultz saw her grandson pinned underneath the car. What happened, if anyone knows the story, apparently someone had parked the car on the driveway with obviously the handbrake that wasn't pulled up, and a little kid was playing behind the car, and lo and behold, this kid found themselves pinned underneath a huge Lincoln Continental. Laura Schultz did not think twice. She sprung into duty, no consideration of any limitations or barriers. She took the car with her one arm, she lifted up the car, and she saved her grandson's life. That's not the freaky part. The freaky part is that every single major news network and television station in America called Laura Schultz. This is a terrific thing. 68-year-old woman saves the life of grandchild. This is all the ingredients for a phenomenal story. She wouldn't take a single call. She didn't respond to the major networks. She didn't respond to any of the major newspapers. Months went by. In fact, almost a year went by until she finally fielded a call from Dr. Charles Garfield, who's a well-known life coach. And obviously the first thing that Dr. Garfield said that, Mrs. Schultz, this is a terrific thing. You saved your grandson's life. What's the embarrassment? Why would you not possibly want to field the call? We can share this with the world. You're the hero. So she said something which I would like to repeat because it sets the tone for our discussion this evening, and something that is a thesis throughout the Torah which many people don't focus on. She said the following. She said, after she lifted up a huge car at the age of 68, she started thinking, what other things in her life did she have potential for that she didn't actualize? She never realized, of course, that you could lift up a car with a single arm. And at that moment in time, with her tremendous insight and life sagacity, she realized that imagine if I didn't realize I could lift up a single car. What else is there in my journey called life that I thought I could never do? And I built around limitations. The concept of breaking out of limitations, the notion of achieving greatness is a thesis which is permeated throughout Torah. The importance of things in the Torah is often learnt from the context. Who was the first Jew? Avraham Avinu. What was the very final test, supposedly according to most of the Mefarshim, of the test of Avraham Avinu? Akedas Yitzchak, the binding of Yitzchak. What happened at the end of the binding of Yitzchak, Avraham's son, who at the time he was about to sacrifice his son, a bus call came out from Shemayim and said, Avraham, Avraham. Why the repetition of Avraham's name? The Mefarshim say something very clearly, and it's an unbelievable concept, and it's something that I would like you to all internalize and take home with you when you pack your bags tomorrow. And that is the Malachim, the bus call from Shemayim was saying the Avraham down here had reached his potential up there. And the goal in this journey called life is to actualize our potential. And every single person sitting here in Madison Square Gardens, for the sake of the television, is destined for absolute greatness, and it's one thing that no single Jew is wired for mediocrity. If I went around the room here and I said, would you like to just cruise through life and be a C-? No Jewish neshama is wired like that. And therefore, very early on, the protagonist, the first patriarch of our religion, The bus call is teaching us that Abraham down there had become Abraham. He had finally actualized his potential by being Omed Banisoin, by actualizing, by the final test of the 10 tests of Abraham. So is the concept of breaking out of limitations, is the concept of reaching greatness an important concept? It's one of the fundamental reasons why we are put in this world. So if we look at the topic that's been given here in Project Inspire 2023, what is holding you back from reaching your potential? I'm going to try and summarize it into 5 points. Why is it that people in this room who are destined for greatness can potentially come to the end of this journey and at best have a silver or bronze medal? Reason number one that people don't actualize their potential or don't push beyond limits is, number one, is the lack of knowledge, meaning the lack of understanding who you are. I have never understood in all my many years of speaking and involved in many areas of Israel why this is a topic that's not taught more in the yeshiva world. There's not a single Fortune 50, 500 company that doesn't have a mission statement. Microsoft, Google, everyone in that company knows why that company was incorporated and understands why they are in business. Why do we not each have a mission statement? Why are you in this world? I have spoken at every single conference and we go around, and everyone says, but Rabbi, it's for the Tariq Mitzvah. Shkoyach, that's fantastic. But why you? Did you choose your parents? Did you choose the color of your eyes? Did you choose your IQ? Obviously, you were given a unique situation, and that is part of the hints that the Almighty is giving to you as to why you were put in this world. Not everyone was put into this world for the same reason, and that's the beauty of the fact that every single one of us has a completely different tafkid in this world. I said to someone, one of the reasons that if you see a Balkaira laning, and often you hear the Balkaira stops, and you see someone running up to the klaf, and if they see two oisios, two of the letters touching, it's a Apostle Sefer Torah. Why? Because the Mefarshim teach us that every single one of us, every single Jew, is one of the letters of the Torah. If two are touching, it shows they're not unique, and it's a Apostle Sefer Torah. We're all unique, and you have to figure out what's your unique mission in this world. It's said very, very clearly in Mesilas Yesharim, in a Siva Shalom. I'll leave the Svarim for later, and let's make this practical tonight. How do I know what my mission is? I'm going to give you a few exercises because people can ride, people can do somersaults, we're not going to shambas, and this is going to be practical ways that you can figure out what your mission is in this world. Because if you come to the end of this journey called life, and you're going to be asked, if you actualize your potential, you're going to be asked whether Avram, were you Chanan, were you Rivka? And this is the way you have to figure it out. You have to take some time and think about, do a cheshbon and nefesh around figuring out your self-knowledge. I'm going to give you some ideas through many years of speaking at different events and different workshops. Here's one concept. Some of you might know Rabbi Aryeh Nevin, who does a similar workshop on figuring out yourself, your mission in life. Just 2 questions. Think of in your life 5 of the most pleasurable moments in your life where you were just in the zone. You didn't want the moment to end. And I'm saying that in a way that's more than visceral. It's a moment in your life, usually, often when a person just feels that they satisfied a certain project under the chuppah, whatever that is, that's telling you something. And number 2, if you inherited $1 billion, and or if there was 5 more hours in the day, how would you spend the money and how would you spend your time? Let me say that again. If I wired you $1 billion tomorrow, and we were able to do a cosmological, astrological nace, and there were 5 more hours in each day, how would you spend the money and how would you spend the extra 5 hours? And be honest with yourself, that's very telling as to what your mission is in this world. Here's questions from Rabbi Dov Heller, the same kind of concept. I'm just giving you some ideas of how to figure out what your mission statement is, because self-knowledge is one of the reasons why people don't reach their potential. They go through life blonzering around and looking at the guy next to them and suffering from FOMO. Some ideas in terms of how you figure out what your mission is. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Question number 2. What do you enjoy talking about the most? These are very telling, existential, introspective ideas, and you just got to be brutally honest with yourself. These are some of the exercises that you can figure out why your unique soul was sent to this world. What have you struggled with most in your life? I've spoken to many people, and they feel that there's something that keeps repeating in their life. That's not mikra, that's not coincidence, that's part of the tikkun of your unique neshama. What is your fantasy about saving the world? Is there anything that comes to mind if you knew you weren't going to fail, money wasn't a problem, no constrictions? I want you to start thinking about these ideas. Here's something I'm going to give to each and every one of you before you leave. It's really an idea developed by one of my teachers, Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal, who was the Rosh Hashiva of Ner Yisrael, who's the Rebbe of Rav Noach Weinberg. 3 Olympic circles, right? Think of 3 Olympic circles. In circle number 1, and I can email this to you, and again, this is as close to foolproof, and I've done this many times. Again, there's no right or wrong, just be honest with yourself. In circle number 1, list 5 activities that you're good at. And this is not a time to be falsely humble. Everyone's good at something. We all have certain gifts, right? Circle number 1, 5 activities that you are good at. Olympic circle number 2, make a list of 5 things that you most enjoy doing, the most enjoyable activities. So 5 things that you're good at. Circle number 2 is 5 things that are activities that you most enjoy. The third circle is what you can do to improve the world. Where those 3 circles coexist, that's your mission in this world. I'm going to email this to people. It's much too complicated to do in a Motzei Shabbos with people looking like, post-Chanan. 1 circle, 5 things that you like to do, the five things that you're gifted at, 5 things that are most enjoyable. One thing that you can improve the world, where the 3 circles come together like this. That is your mission in this world. I want you to think about it again. I'm going to email this. There's so much material to get through. But point number 1 as to why people don't reach their potential is because they don't know why they're here. Point two, why people don't reach their potential in this world. You need to know right here and now at Project Inspire 2023, you cannot be the following 2 things. These 2 things are binary, they're mutually exclusive. You cannot be both. You cannot be great and be comfortable. Very scary, because the secular world talks about comfort, talks about cruising, talks about, but that's antithetical to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wired us. And we know that because there's no word in the Torah called retirement. Because if you go to Hawaii with Peter Colada and you sit in the sun after day number 3, you're going out of your mind. The idea of being comfortable and being great is completely antithetical to Torah. If you want to be great, it's going to be painful. If you want to grow, you cannot possibly cruise and think you're going to be an air-conditioned Tesla for the rest of your life. The times in your life where it's the most painful, where you are going through the most vicissitudes, that's when you're growing the most. So let's talk about this from the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the human psyche. Fight or flight, right? There are going to be times in your life where you are outside your comfort zone. There's basically 3 F's. Fight, freeze, or flight. I remember this training as a Hatzalah person. At the end of the day, it's much more comfortable to just flight. I want to overlay this with what Rav Desta says in Michtav Eliyahu. And I spoke to a lot of the people about the concept of what you feel like is your body, what you want is your neshama. So hopefully through some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, figure out what you want. You turn 97, that chocolate cake comes out. Your significant others on your right, your family's on your left, your buddies are all around, the boom mic like this goes around. What do you want them to be saying about you? What do you want? That's your legacy. What do you want them to? Now, we cut that down into little pieces. You want to be, I just finished a thing called Rabbis Can Run. There was like 40 rabbis. We ran a marathon to raise money. Do you honestly think that after running for a few miles at Sikashmak, I started looking for an Uber? I was going out of my mind. You hit a certain wall, right? What do you want? I really wanted to get in the best shape of my life, and I felt bad because people gave me money to raise for charity. What did I feel like? I felt like just walking away, taking Gatorade and calling it quits. That's how I felt. What do you want? I want greatness. I want to be honest. I want to take every one of my sponsors and say, I just finished the marathon. You want to be a Talmid Chacham tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off at 4 o'clock? What do you feel like? You feel like hitting that snooze button so fast that you can't say, but what do you want? You need to focus in your life of what you want. You'll achieve greatness if you recalibrate your life onto what you want and not what you feel like. What you feel like is going to be your animalistic, it's going to be pulling down, you're tired, I know you're tired. It's tough, I know it's tough. Great people calibrate their lives onto what they want as opposed to feel like. That's more in consonance with an neshama. So point number 2 is, understand that if you want to achieve greatness, if you want to achieve your mission in this world, it's going to be painful and you need to follow your neshama, not your guf. Let me ask you the following. Every Friday night, right, we bench our sons and daughters. What do we say when we bench our daughters? They should be like our matriarchs, right? Why don't we say that they should be like Jessica and Jennifer, who went to an Ivy League school. They married this good-looking jock from they're now living in Connecticut with a white picket fence. They've got a penthouse in the Waldorf Astoria. Because that's not why we're here, Rabbi say. If you look at the lives of our patriarchs and our matriarchs, they had tough lives. Do you have any idea what kind of a life David HaMelech had? The Machaba of Tehillim. Great people focus and they stay on what they want and they don't calibrate their life to what they feel like, because the natural proclivity of following what you feel like is to become a victim and to ask questions like why. And you will never, ever achieve greatness if you're following the natural feelings of it's tough, I'm hot, I feel. You've got to surmount the body and focus on, it's not easy things, on the neshama. So the first reason why people don't reach greatness is they don't know who they are. We spoke about developing a mission statement. We went through some guided exercises, some questions. I gave you the Olympic 3 flags, which I'm happy to email you. The second thing we said is that most people want to be comfortable, and greatness requires you to follow what you want, not what you feel like. The third reason that people don't reach their greatness, which is one of the reasons why you put in this world, is to achieve what you're supposed to be, is to actualize your potential, is people unfortunately use things like excuses, or they use victim mentality, right? I spoke about this once before. How many times have we been at, Aisha Torah discoveries, workshops, came, and someone comes to the podium and says, Rabbi, that was amazing, fantastic, I didn't understand your accent, but it sounded great. But you don't understand, I'm too old. So there's a beautiful piece that I read, I think, earlier in one of the talks. There's a Dear, I don't know if anyone's around from the days of the Dear Abby column. Do you remember the Dear Abby column? So the real Abby is a Jewish woman who lived in Iowa. It's a beautiful piece, this. Someone wrote a piece into Abby and said, I am X years old. I've always wanted to go to medical school, but I figured that if I go to medical school 7 years from now, I'll be 43. Listen to Abby's answer, beautiful. She said, in 7 years from now, if you don't go to medical school, how old will you be? You're going to be 43, right? This is a life dream. Excuses is usually one of the voices of the Maisa Satan, of the Yetzer Hara. Be careful when you hear successful people don't make excuses that make things happen. The other thing that I always hear is, if only I didn't do this, Rabbi. You don't understand what happened in the past. I completely messed up my life. I probably hear that once a day. So I'm telling you from a Torah perspective, there's no such a thing as messing up your life. Firstly, there is a gift that we have all been given and that was in the world even before the world was created, and that's called tshuva. I mentioned in the talk before, in the next world, it's very, very clear that you're going to see the movie of your life. Panoramic movie of your life. And you're going to be sitting there with buttered popcorn and a Diet Coke, and you're going to be sitting there with the neshamas who've already left this world. And there are going to be scenes in the movie that you want to chalish and jump under the seat and run to the exit. Right here tonight, Motzei Shabbos, Project Inspired 2023. You have the full control as to whether you see the cut or the uncut version. The way you see the cut version is something called tshuva. There's something that all of us have done in our journey called life that we wish we didn't do. That we're fallible human beings and we made a mistake and it was a misjudgment. If you walked in tonight and you have made no mistake and your life is perfect, speak to me afterwards, we'll go into therapy, we'll talk about it on the side. It's impossible. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us as not malachim. We are fallible human beings and life is tough. The idea of looking back on your past and saying, I could have, I would have, I should have. I think I mentioned to someone, I spoke, I think it was Gateways one year, and a woman came up to me afterwards, crying her eyes out, and I literally could not get a word in. I couldn't get to speak to this woman. I'm trying to, I don't know, give her some 3 minutes. And all I heard was, and he did this, Rabbi, and he was this. And so I'm just being very patient. I'm trying to, 6 minutes into this diatribe, she finally realized that she was talking about her ex-husband, that she divorced 21 years ago. So she's been living with a handbrake up for 21 years. You've got to bury the past, otherwise the past will bury you. We are not in this world to live life in the rear view mirror. That is one of the classic tricks of the Yetzer Hara. Your job in this world is to achieve greatness. The Ma'aser Satan, the Sitra Achar, is an iteration of the Malach HaMaves, and what he wants you to do is to sit like a zombie and say, what a shmendrik I am, look what I did. When that voice comes into your head, you can assure yourself that that's not a positive thing. There's almost no positive action that will come out of guilt. We make jokes about Jewish guilt. Guilt, as a general rule, does not come from a good place. I've unfortunately had too much, I've seen the movie too many times where someone marries someone, and at the end of the day, I get this call that, Rabbi, I need to speak to you alone, I know exactly what's coming. I married, I just felt bad. I mean, we had been dating for all the invitations were already out. What was I supposed to do? It's never a reason. It's never a reason to make a life decision. And guilt is usually connected to something that happens in the past. Okay, so number one, we said, understand your life mission. And number two, we said, follow what you want, not what you feel like. And number three, we said, stop living with excuses and being a victim. And usually, if only I did this, if only I was older. Number four, I come from South Africa. There's two major kinds of elephants in the world. There's the African elephant, which I know a little bit about, and there's the Indian elephant. So here's how, when an African elephant, which is a bull van, right? This thing is like, can take a village out. When an African elephant is born, in order to make sure that this little puppy elephant doesn't rip the village out, what they do in large parts of tribes in Africa is they take a little rope and they put it around the elephant's head and they put a peg into the ground. As this elephant, this cute little elephant grows up to be this enormous beast, same thing. When the elephant's done their work and it's usually transport, whatever, what do? They take the elephant, little rope around its head, and they put the rope into the ground, tap it in the peg, the elephant doesn't move. The elephant's been hardwired to think, because as a little baby he couldn't move, and now it's metastasized in his mind eye and he thinks he cannot move. He can pull that peg out quicker than you can pull out dental floss and rip through every single village. The idea of creating restrictions is something that we all do, and that's the notion of self-sabotaging. I'm going to give you some of the 11 signs of whether you self-sabotage. If you are 11 out of 11, we need to speak privately afterwards as well. Number one, if you avoid people and situations that make you uncomfortable. Number two, if you stay within your comfort zone and avoid any kind of change. You're probably a few of these things, but if you're all 11, we need to speak offside. Number three, setting goals that are too low to make sure that you're successful. And number four, creating conflict with romantic partners or loved ones or friends or co-workers. Number five, trying to control others. Number six, attempting to gain others' approval. If you live in the world of FOMO, we need to talk. Number seven, keep making excuses. These are the indicia, the signs of self-sabotage. Number eight, taking actions that don't match your values and goals. And number nine, continue comparing yourself to other people. And number 10, social withdrawal, isolation. And number 11, doing crazy, risky behavior. If you are 11 out of 11, that is a good, certainly shows that you have a proclivity to self-sabotage. Okay. I want to fly to the very, point number 5 is negative thinking. Tomorrow I'm speaking about a book that became a cult book called The Secret. The Secret was the book that launched the concept of the law of attraction. The law of attraction, if those people understand what this whole cult thing is about, is that your prominent thoughts, you can make your head into a magnet, and your prominent thought can pull in and can actualize and make things happen. We're going to discuss whether that's a Jewish concept. How important is positive thinking? So when we all know trach good soll sein good, if you think good, is that a Jewish concept? Is that a Torah concept, the power of positive thinking? So again, I don't want to preempt the talk tomorrow, but the idea of if you have a certain thought, you can make yourself into a magnet is not a Torah concept. That's making yourself the center of the universe instead of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the power of thoughts is a very clear, powerful Torah idea, because thoughts affect your emotions, affect your actions. You are not responsible for a thought coming into your mind, but you are responsible to reject that thought if it's inappropriate. Now, I'll give you the Kuntras is a booklet that comes out on the 9 tricks of the Yetzer Hara. If a voice comes to you and it's completely negative, you're listening to an unbelievable lecture, Motzei Shabbos, let's say in Stanford, Connecticut, for example, and a thought comes to you, which is for sure going to put you in a bad mood, right? You think of the mortgage, you think, what, okay? If you start engaging in that thought and get into this discussion, you're done. That is for sure the voice of the Sitra of the other side. Here's what you're supposed to do. When that thought comes into your mind, and the goal of that thought is to pull you down and make you have atzvus, feel depressed and not in a good place, assume it's not coming from a good place. And it says this very clearly in Sfarim. What you're supposed to do is say to that voice, which if there's any shrinks in the audience, basic cognitive behavior therapy, is to say, it's a fantastic idea that you think that I'm so-and-so. Let's discuss it in about an hour. And you keep kicking that can down the street, and you're going to take away the power of that thought. As soon as you engage in that idea, I cannot tell you how many chasanim that I get calls from between the engagement and the marriage. Rabbi, I need to speak to you. I've got to break this thing off. And I start drilling down as to the reason why he's breaking this thing off. He doesn't even know himself. One of the hardest times in the life of a neshama is between engagement and marriage. It's an unnatural time. Okay, this is a time where 2 neshamas who brought down to this world are coming together, and during this is Ben Hashmoshes. This is a limbo period. It's an extremely fertile time for the Maisa Satan to mess with your head, and he's going to say things to you which are crazy. Don't engage in those discussions. That's for people who are not engaged. If you get these weird thoughts, as soon as you engage in that, you're done. So that once again, thoughts affect emotions, affect actions. I want to make this more of a discussion, so what I've done is I've summarized 10 things that all of you need to let go of if you want to move forward and reach your potential in this journey called life. Number 1, you need to let go of the opinions of others controlling your life. What other people think of you is none of your business. Let me repeat that. 10 rules, 10 things that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential. Number 1, you need to let go of the opinion of others controlling your life. And number 2, you need to let go of the shame of past failures. I think some of you guys were in the room when I spoke a couple of days ago of someone who failed in every single possible way as a kid growing up in Europe. He couldn't speak until the age of 4. He couldn't write until the age of 7. He was expelled from elementary school at the age of 13. His principal said he's mildly retarded. Today you know him as Albert Einstein. Or perhaps you know of a cartoonist that dreamt of becoming a cartoonist for a newspaper and tried for every single possible newspaper and failed and failed and failed. And eventually he was so financially indigent, not a penny to his name, that he knocked on the door of the priest of the church and he said, I don't even have a roof over my head. The priest said, at the very least I can do is you can sleep in the farm barn at the back of the church. He went to the farm barn, and on a stack of hay that night, a little mouse came out of the corner of the farm barn, and he sketched that mouse. You people know that mouse today is Mickey Mouse, and that person is Walt Disney. Or perhaps you know a woman who grew up and was terribly molested, emotionally and physically, and she dreamt of being a talk show host. And her first audition, at the age of 13, the producer said, "Get off the stage, you have absolutely no talent." And she failed again, and she failed 17 times, and today you know her as Oprah Winfrey. I had a client when I first came out of law school who I dealt with peripherally. He had an idea in a movie, an idea of the plight of the underdog, and a beautiful concept, and he wrapped it in a certain kind of script, and he went to studio number 1, and they laughed him out. Studio number 2, and studio number 6, he didn't have a penny to his name. Studio number 7 said, "You know what? We're going to pay you $250,000 for the script. Here's the condition. The protagonist, the main actor, is going to be one of our people. It can't be you." And Sylvester Stallone walked out, and on studio number 8, he made a movie called Rocky. And if you want to take it from a Torah perspective, how many times did Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, David HaMelech, the greatest people, how many times did they fail? There's a misunderstanding of what it says in Mishlei. When the notion that you have to fall 7 times, that you fall 7 times and you get up, you have to fall, you have to fail in order to reach that potential. The best mashal I can think of is the person who won the gold medal in the Olympic high jump. They had to walk backwards first before they ran the other way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tests everyone's mettle before he will give you that success. Do you know the reason why on Friday night when you cut the challah, you never hand challah to another person and put it in their hand? You take the challah and you put it on the table and let them grab it. Do you understand the reason why? Because no one wants a handout. No one wants bread of shame. No one wants to think that they've done something and they're not worthy of it. Do you know how many people who are people that I've worked with who are some of the richest people in the world that get hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and they give it to their kids and their kids have done nothing? And do you know the percentage of that generation that grow up to be juvenile delinquents? People can't stand the fact that they've got something that they didn't deserve. What if I were to tell you that Gary was about to graduate from Harvard Medical School, and Gary's next door neighbor, Larry, they've been buddies for all these years, and Gary says, "You know, it's my big day. I'm about to graduate from Harvard Medical School. Larry, get in the car. Come with us to graduation." And Gary is waiting. His name gets called up. This is his big day, the pomp and ceremony, the gown. This is Harvard Yard, blue skies, Cambridge. And he gets on the stage, and 2 names later, the next door neighbor, Larry, he has his name being called. And he's got nothing. He was there as a Nachschlepper. And people throw him a gown and a cap, and he ascends up, and he shakes the dean's hand, and he has his name, Dr. So-and-so. How does he feel on that stage? A complete shamazel. Because he's done nothing. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why, by the way, people think that love is in emotion. Love is a byproduct of giving. From the word ahava means to give, right? The more you give, the more you love. Which is the reason why Chazal say, as a general rule, parents will always love a child more than the child loves the parent. Let me say that again. It's not me, it's Chazal. Why does a parent love a child more than the child loves a parent? It's from giving and giving and giving. And we can break it down even further. I've had many parents over the years tell me that one of their children was special needs. One of their children had certain physical challenges and they had to work harder and it was very tough and they can't help but feel there's more love. It's because you're giving and you're giving your kishkas and a part of yourself is invested in that other person. It's the antithesis of taking. That's when you feel good. Do you feel better by taking money or by giving money? Number 3 of the things you need to give up, the 10 things you need to give up in order to actualize your potential. You need to give up being indecisive about what you want. The road of life is filled with flat squirrels that couldn't make a decision. You need to give up being indecisive. I have spoken to people, I've sat down with hours about maybe you should date Shlomi, maybe you should go to this yeshiva, and I see them the next year at Project Inspired. How are you doing, Rachel? What happened? I'm still thinking about it, Rabbi. Not making a decision is a decision in and of itself. Fourth thing that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential. Stop procrastinating on the goals that matter to you. The egg timer of life has started, my friends. And the sand is moving through that egg timer, and there's two things in the world that we all get a limited amount of. We get a limited amount of time, and by the way, you get a limited amount of words. And when your time is up, it's up. And when you say the last word, you say the last word. Time is something that is sacrosanct. The secular world talks about killing time. There is nothing further from the truth. Point number 5 that you need to give up in order to actualize your potential is choosing to do nothing. There is a thing in this world, the physical world is a mirror of the spiritual world. There is a thing called spiritual gravity. If you do nothing, spiritually you will atrophy. If you want to achieve your greatness, you need to stop doing nothing. Number 6 that you need to let go of in order to reach greatness is you need to stop thinking you need to be right. I cannot tell you how many shalom bias couples that I've counseled, and it's at the end of the day I sell, and it's usually the man. Women don't have a problem with egos and testosterone, and it's usually the man who's whacked out of his mind. And you need to make a decision, sir. You want to be right, or do you want to have shalom? In halacha, there's very, very few times where there's a pshara, where there's a compromise. There's two shitas as to how you put a mezuzah on the door. One says vertical, the other says horizontal. When you walk into a Jewish home, what is the direction of a mezuzah? It's at 45 degrees. It's a reminder you've got to meet someone halfway. You can be right, and you can go through 27 divorces, or you can have shalom, which is one of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's names. Number 7, that you need to give up with in order to reach your potential, you need to stop running from problems that should be fixed. Anyone that has mastered, and I spoke about spiritual time management, the hardest thing in the day, do first. That's the time when your defenses are up the most, where you are in the zone, you're not suffering from fatigue. Don't keep procrastinating. It doesn't mean it goes away. Aim, fire, do it in the morning, get that phone call out the way. It's not going to go away. Number 8, that you need to give up in order to reach your potential is stop making excuses rather than decisions. Successful people don't make excuses. They make decisions and they get on with it. Number 9, stop overlooking the positive points in your life. Let me explain to you. There are 8.7 billion people on this planet. Out of 8.7 billion people, 0.02% are Jews. Out of 0.02% of, at best 10%, are in the parsha of being Torah observant. You're here on a Saturday night in Stamford, Connecticut, listening to an amazing lecture. Do you understand how in the eyes of the mighty you diamonds? The world is rough, but you're the diamonds in the rough. Do you understand that every single person in this room is an ambassador, is a prince and a princess? It blows my mind, and I think this is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu put me in this situation. I work with the most famous influencers, the most famous celebrities, some people know them, and the most famous actors and actresses in the world. Do you understand the meaningless life these people lead? I know them, they're my clients, some of them have become my friends. Do you understand if they sit at a Shabbos table with us, the way I speak to my wife and children, they've never seen that before. Do you understand that I understand, we all understand why we're in this world? They are clueless. And I made the point in one of the lectures before, what industry, out of all the industries and professions and vocations in the world, what industry, Rahman al-San, has the most suicides? What industry do you think in the world has the most suicides? It's not dentistry. Someone came up with dentistry before. It's the entertainment industry. What time of the year, Rahman al-San, are most of these fatalities, or most of these suicides carried out? Very good. Who said that? December the 25th and January the 5th. Why? Because there's no one around. And they watch that falafel ball drop in Times Square, and they kiss some stranger, and they say, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Do you understand that we don't say, our new year is called Rosh Hashanah? We don't say have a good year. We say have a sweet year because everything's good. It's painful. There's a lot of things that are inexplicable. I don't understand why this family had this baby. I understand why this marriage went this way, but I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves me more than I love my own children. It's good in the eternal spiritual sense of the world. Do you understand what's happening? I work with Gen Z every single day. The machla, what's happening in Gen Z, is the highest form of nihilism in any generation. Nihilism means that there's no meaning in their life. If there's no meaning, the corollary of nihilism is hedonism or materialism. Hedonism is pure pleasure. They're looking for pleasure, and it's only the pleasure in the guf, which is transient, and it'll never ever will make a person feel happy. And ego, in terms of the iPhone and the iChat, it's all about I. And 4 years ago, the Oxford Dictionary, as it does every year, included the brand new word into the Oxford Dictionary was selfie. This is the I generation. And what do we do when we wake up in the morning? I think Rabbi Goldberg mentioned this as well. Grammatically, we shouldn't say modeh ani, we should say ani modeh. But we never say I first, because it's not about me. And the last two words of modeh ani is what? Rabba emunasecha, I have faith in you. Every single person in this room is part of that 0.2. You didn't choose your neshama. You've got the biggest gift that you can possibly have from the Almighty. Is the spiritual DNA of a Jewish neshama is something that you cannot possibly fathom. Believe me, LeBron James would like to have my neshama. He'll never ever be able to have the capacity that the people in this room have. Number 10 is you need to stop not appreciate the present moment. This is one of the hardest things in the world, is being in this present moment. Don't get me started about social media and the fragmentation of what's happened and the advent of what's happened of multitasking, which doesn't exist. I spoke earlier on about a Tosfos which talks about you cannot possibly do two things using your brain and think that you're doing them at the same pace. It's a complete myth. That's a Torah source for multitask. You feel busy, Now someone pointed out to me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given women a certain gift that we don't have, men don't have. I mean, I used to be a woman, but this is a whole different discussion. A woman can multitask in different modalities that we can't do. So a woman, we can't do this. A woman can hold the telephone, nurse the baby, and be screaming at her husband. We can't do that, men. But using the same brain neurological thing and thinking you can be on the phone, checking your screen and speaking to your boss, it's a joke. It'll exhaust you, and I can give you a plethora of research to tell you that ultimately it's going to be a degradation of your performance, and all it's going to make you feel is busy, but you're not being productive. So for those of you who just came in, what we discussed this evening is how important is it to reach your potential. We spoke about Laura Schultz, a woman that lifted up a car and saved her grandson's life. And she didn't take a single interview from any of the TV stations or newspapers, because at the moment she lifted up the car, she realized, if I can lift up the car, how many other things in my life could I have done that I didn't do? We pivoted and we spoke about the Torah, and we spoke about the first Jew, Avram, and we said after the last of the 10th test, the Akedas Yitzchak, he heard a bus call come back and said, Avraham, Avraham. Why two Avrahams? We said because the Avraham down here had reached the Avraham up there. And we learned from that, the Meforshim, is that we all have tremendous potential. What's the definition of Gehenna? I don't know where people get this idea of this red devil and this hot... That's not what Gehenna is. Here's Gehenna. Gehenna is when you're in that world and you see the movie of your life, hopefully the cut version. And you will see who you could have been. And it's too late. That's Gehenna. You see the things that you said, this is who I am, take me or leave me, and the Almighty will show you could have overcome that. And you'll see the way you treated the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you in your space, and you'll chalish. That's Gehenna. We then spoke about 5 of the main reasons why people don't reach their potential. We said they don't know what their mission is in this world. We went through a few exercises about how to figure out what your mission statement is. We then said often people follow what they feel like instead of what they want. In order to reach your potential, you've got to recalibrate and follow what your neshama is telling you, which is what you want, not what you feel like. We spoke about the fact that people make excuses. If only I was younger. If only I didn't do this in my past. We spoke about self-sabotage, self-imposed boundaries. The last point we spoke about was having a positive frame of mind, because your thoughts trigger your emotions, trigger your thoughts, your thoughts trigger your emotions, trigger your action. And then we summarize the 10 things that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential. I want to end with a story and then I'll take it up for a few questions. I do this because I care. There's no other agenda here. And I do this because it's unbelievable that for whatever reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me an incredibly unique vantage point. And it's clear hashkacha. He's put me in a situation where we work and represent some of the biggest personalities in the world of pop culture. People that everyone in this room would know. And after doing this for years, I see that the things that make them dysfunctional and unhappy are things that we all have in this room. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the instructions for living. The Torah Chaim, he gave us instructions for living. And the potential, and when people, because we're not impervious to what goes on in the Western world, when people put these pop idols on pedestals, people in this room, and I'm saying this to myself, it's a tragedy because these are dysfunctional, unhappy people. And the paradox is they want meaning. They want the kind of relationships that you've got with your kids. They want to be at a place like this where people are sitting, learning and growing. They would chalish for this. So I'll tell you a story about a Rebbe who was an unbelievable person in Chinuch. He just knew all of his kids on an unbelievable level. He knew the neshamas. And there used to be a little minhag that there used to be recess and the kids would go out into the field, and he knew all of his talmidim. And one kid used to love tennis balls, grab a tennis ball. Another kid used to grab a piece of grass. And little Moshe loved butterflies. And as a bit of a chevraman, so he said to his class, watch this. Obviously Rebbe's going to come back. He's going to say, what's in your hand? It's going to be a butterfly. He's then going to say to me, is it dead or alive? If he says it's dead, I'm going to open my hand and the butterfly is going to flap away. If he says it's alive, I'm going to crush that butterfly and the carcass is going to fall. And true to form, a recess, all the kids go out into the play garden. They come back into the room, and the little chevraman looks at the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says, Moshe says to Rebbe, what's in my hand? Rebbe says to Moshe, what's in your hand? He said, it's a butterfly. And then Moshe says, Rebbe, is it dead or alive? And his Rebbe said, it's in your hands. Whatever I talk about tonight, and the ideas that are all coming down from Torah sources, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but at the end of the day, when the sun sets tomorrow, and when you check out and give the South African rabbis a huge tip, realize it's in your hands. And I really want to say this from the bottom of my heart, because not everyone has the opportunity to be dealing with all these famous people. And I see them and I say, if you lived in my shoes, you would wake up in the morning and you would have such a sense of simcha, that you're a Jew, that you understand what your purpose is, that you have people around you that is a support. We take this for granted. You are, in the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, each and every one of you are handpicked. You're handpicked for greatness. You're handpicked to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas. I wish you gesund, bracha, and only good things. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you for listening.